Hey everyone, thanks for being here. If you're enjoying this, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what you're doing right now. Working, studying, just chilling? I'm curious. Alright, let's get into it. What you're about to hear. A man wakes up in a place between heaven and hell, stripped of power, surrounded by predators. He'll form an impossible friendship in the worst place imaginable. And when the demons finally come for them both, he'll make a choice that changes everything. This is about what happens when you sacrifice everything with no guarantee of salvation. Now the story. I died on a Tuesday. I remember that part clearly, the taste of copper, the way my knees buckled on cold linoleum, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. Then nothing, then everything. I woke up somewhere else. The first thing I noticed wasn't sight or sound, it was weight. Not on my body, but in it. Like my bones had been replaced with lead and my lungs filled with wet sand. Every breath required intention. Every movement felt like pushing through syrup that resisted but never quite stopped you. When I finally opened my eyes, I understood why the weight felt wrong. Gravity here was a suggestion, not a rule. I was lying on something that might have been stone, except it pulsed with a rhythm that matched no heartbeat I'd ever felt. The surface beneath me was warm, body temperature, uncomfortably intimate. Above me, if above even meant anything here, stretched a sky that hurt to look at. Not bright. The opposite. It was gray, but gray like a color that had forgotten what it was supposed to be, shifting between shades that had no names. Structures rose in the distance, or maybe they were close. Perspective didn't work right. They looked like buildings made by someone who'd heard about architecture but never seen it. All wrong angles and impossible proportions. Some twisted upward until they disappeared into that awful sky. Others seemed to grow downward, rooted in nothing, hanging like stalactites made of meat and metal. I sat up slowly. My body responded, which surprised me. I'd expected to be incorporeal, ghost-like. Instead, I felt solid, real, but wrong, diminished. Like someone had taken everything I was and pressed it through a sieve, keeping the shape but losing the substance. That's when the sound reached me. Distant, a scream maybe, or laughter, or both happening simultaneously in a way that should have been impossible. It echoed across the landscape, if you could call it that, bouncing off surfaces that shouldn't have existed, coming from directions that made my head ache. I stood. My legs trembled but held. The ground beneath my feet looked like cracked earth, but when I shifted my weight it gave slightly like skin over muscle. Veins of something luminescent ran through it, pulsing in that same irregular rhythm. I didn't want to think about what it might be pulsing with. You're new. I spun around, nearly losing my balance. The motion felt sluggish, delayed, like moving underwater. A woman stood there, or had been standing there. I couldn't tell if she'd approached or had always been there, and I'd simply failed to notice. She was translucent around the edges, her form flickering like bad reception. Her eyes were the only solid thing about her, dark and endless and completely empty of hope. "Where?" I started. "Don't." She cut me off. Her voice hollow. "Everyone asks that first, it doesn't matter where. What matters is what you were, what you did." She studied me with those dead eyes. "You've got that look. The confused one. The I didn't deserve this look." A sound escaped her that might have been a laugh. "Nobody thinks they deserve this." "Deserve what?" She gestured vaguely at everything around us. Evaluation, testing, the waiting room between damnation and salvation, though most of us end up in the former. She started to fade, her edges bleeding into the gray air. "Word of advice, stay away from the hollow places, and if you hear howling, run. Not that it'll help. Wait." But she was gone. Dissolved into the atmosphere like she'd never existed at all. I was alone again. Not entirely alone, I realized. I could feel presences, distant and close simultaneously. things moving through the gray, hunting or fleeing or simply existing in whatever capacity existence meant here. I started walking. There was no direction that made sense, so I picked one arbitrarily and moved. The landscape shifted subtly as I traveled, never quite the same from one moment to the next. That building in the distance? Now it was closer, or further, or at a different angle. The ground beneath me transitioned from that skin-like surface to something more like ash, then to smooth glass that showed reflections of things that weren't there. Time felt broken. Minutes might have been hours, hours might have been seconds. There was no sun to track, no rhythm to establish routine, just the gray and the weight and the sounds that came and went like waves. Then I heard the screaming. This wasn't distant. This was immediate, visceral, the sound of genuine terror. I turned toward it without thinking. Stupid, but instinct overrode reason. I found them in what might have been a plaza, if plazas could exist in spaces that defied geometry. 3 figures solid and real in a way that made them stand out against the gray. 2 were on the ground, 1 male, 1 female, clutching each other. The third stood over them. The third wasn't human, had never been human. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin the color of charred meat. Its proportions were wrong, arms too long, fingers that ended in points rather than nails, a face that was almost human but not quite, like a mask that didn't fit properly. Its eyes burned with actual fire, not metaphorical, real flames dancing in empty sockets. A demon. My mind supplied the word with absolute certainty. "Please," the man on the ground begged, his voice cracked. "We didn't do anything, we just, doesn't matter what you did." The demon's voice was layered, multiple tones speaking in unison. It crouched down, bringing its face level with the terrified couple. "Matters what you are. Souls, unclaimed, available." It reached out with one of those 2 long arms. I should have run, should have hidden, should have done anything except what I did. "Stop." The word left my mouth before I could stop it. Quiet, barely audible. But in this place where sound behaves strangely, it carried. The demon's head swiveled toward me with mechanical precision. Those burning eyes fixed on me, and suddenly I understood what it meant to be truly seen by something that existed solely to cause suffering. Another volunteer. The demon straightened to its full height. I wasn't expecting entertainment. The couple didn't hesitate. They scrambled to their feet and ran, disappearing into the gray so quickly they might have been illusions. Smart, survival instinct intact. I stood there frozen as the demon approached. Each step it took left footprints that smoldered in the ground, blackening that skin-like surface. The smell hit me, sulfur and burning hair and something sweet underneath like rotting fruit. "You've got power in you," it said, circling me slowly. Faint, distant echo of what you were. A practitioner, maybe? Warlock? Hedge witch? It leaned in close enough that I could feel heat radiating from its skin. "Doesn't matter here. Whatever you could do before?" It snapped its fingers and sparks flew. "Gone. Stripped away. You're prey now. Just like the rest." It was right. I could feel the absence where my abilities should have been. A hollow space inside me that ached with phantom pain. I'd spent years learning, practicing, pushing boundaries. All of it meaningless now. The demon reached for me, those pointed fingers extending toward my face. Then something hit it from the side. The impact sent the demon sprawling, actually knocked it off balance, which seemed impossible. I stumbled backward, my sluggish reflexes barely getting me out of the way as another figure materialized between us. Male. Pale. Thin in a way that suggested strength rather than weakness. His movements were fluid, predatory, nothing like the sluggish weight that affected me. And his eyes. Red. Not glowing, not burning like the demons, but red like old blood, like rust. A vampire. Another impossibility made real. "Move," he said to me without looking back. His voice was quiet, controlled. "Now." The demon recovered quickly, rising with a sound like grinding stones. "Hunter, you're interfering with collection." Then collect somewhere else. The vampire's stance shifted subtly, weight balanced, ready. This one's under observation. By whom? Does it matter? They stared at each other, predator to predator. The tension stretched thick enough to choke on. Then the demon laughed that horrible multi-toned sound and stepped back. Fine. Not worth the trouble. But you, it pointed at me. You don't have protection forever. See you soon, witch. It vanished. Not dissolved like the woman earlier, just gone, blinking out of existence between one moment and the next. The vampire turned to face me fully. Up close I could see details, the unnatural stillness when he wasn't moving, the way his chest didn't rise and fall with breath, the faint tracery of veins beneath translucent skin that carried no blood. You're an idiot, he said flatly. Stepping in like that. You have no power here, no strength. You'd have been dragged down within seconds. He studied me with those unsettling eyes. Why? They were scared. Everyone here is scared. Terror is the atmosphere. You breathe it, you swim in it. You swim. Intervention accomplishes nothing except getting you noticed. He paused. Which you are now. Congratulations. I didn't know what to say to that. My mind was still catching up, processing what had just happened. The demon, the couple, this vampire who'd appeared from nowhere. Why did you help me? I asked finally. He was quiet for a long moment, his head tilted slightly as if listening to something I couldn't hear. I didn't. I helped myself. That demon was about to get loud. Loud attracts attention. Attention attracts worse things. He started to walk away. Stay out of sight, learn the patterns, avoid the hollow places and the hunting grounds. Maybe you'll last. Wait. He stopped but didn't turn around. What is this place? You really don't know. Now he did turn, and something like amusement flickered across his features. This is Purgatory, the space between, where souls go to be sorted. Most go down, some disappear up. The rest, he gestured at the gray landscape. The rest stay here, wandering, hiding, being hunted, until someone or something decides what they're worth. How long? Time doesn't exist here, not the way you remember it. You could be here for what feels like minutes or centuries. No way to know. He studied me again with that unsettling intensity. What did you do to end up here? The question hit harder than it should have. Images flashed through my mind. Rituals performed with good intentions. Boundaries crossed because I thought I knew better. People hurt despite my best efforts. Not evil. Never evil. But not innocent either. Compromised. Flawed. Human. I made mistakes, I said quietly. Tried to help and caused harm. Bent rules I shouldn't have bent. Thought the ends justified the means. The vampire seemed to consider this. Most here would claim innocence. Most would lie. You... He trailed off, something shifting in his expression. You might actually survive. He began walking again, slower this time. What's your name? I called after him. He paused, hesitated. Julian. Don't. Names have weight here, more weight than you realize. Knowing someone's name. He shook his head. Be careful who you share it with. But you told me yours. I did. He glanced back one final time. That should tell you something about how much I think you matter. He vanished into the gray, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the weight pressing down on everything. I stood there for what might have been minutes or hours, trying to process. Then slowly, carefully, I started moving again. Nowhere specific. Just moving. Surviving. The landscape shifted around me. I saw others occasionally, shadows of people, some translucent like the woman from earlier, others more solid. Most avoided eye contact, scurrying from one hiding place to another. I heard things constantly, screams, laughter, growls, sounds that had no earthly comparison. And I learned. I learned that the hollow places Julian had mentioned were gaps in reality, spaces where the gray opened into pure void. Getting too close made the weight increase exponentially, trying to pull you in. I learned that certain areas pulsed with heat while others dropped to temperatures that made breath crystallize. I learned the difference between the sound of demons hunting and other creatures. The howling Julian had warned about came from things that looked like wolves but moved wrong, their joints bending in directions that defied anatomy. Werewolves, Nephilim, other names for other horrors. All of them stronger than me, faster than me, more suited to this environment than any human soul could ever be. I hid. I watched. I survived. And eventually, I found Julian again. Or he found me. It was hard to tell the difference. He appeared while I was crouched in the shadow of one of those impossible structures, catching what might have been rest. My body didn't require sleep exactly, but after enough time moving, it demanded stillness. Still alive, he observed, stepping out of the gray like he'd been part of it. Surprising. Thanks for the vote of confidence. You've been here. He paused, calculating something. 3 cycles, maybe 4. Hard to measure. Cycles. The closest thing to time we have. When the gray darkens, when it lightens, when the sounds change. Cycles. He crouched down near me, that predatory grace making the movement look effortless. You've been avoiding the obvious question. What question? Why am I helping you? I had been wondering that. Julian appeared whenever I was in genuine danger. Twice more encounters with demons, once when those wolf things got too close. He'd intervene just enough to divert attention, then disappear. Never stayed, never explained. Why are you? He was quiet for a long stretch, his red eyes fixed on something in the distance I couldn't see. When he finally spoke, his voice carried something I hadn't heard before. Vulnerability. Because you remind me of someone I used to be. Someone who made mistakes trying to do good. Someone who ended up here despite intentions. He turned those eyes on me. I was turned against my will. Became a vampire. Spent decades fighting what I was, refusing to feed on humans, trying to hold on to humanity. Failed more times than I succeeded. But I tried. That's why you're here? I asked quietly. Because you were a vampire? No. I'm here because I was a monster who sometimes acted human, not a human who became a monster. The distinction matters. Apparently. Bitterness colored his tone. I saved people, protected them, stopped others of my kind from killing. Thought that would count for something. Instead, he gestured at the gray surrounding us. Evaluation. We sat in silence for a while. Eventually, I asked the question that had been building. Have you seen them? The angels? His head snapped toward me so fast it would have broken a human neck. How do you know about them? I don't. Not really. But if demons are here, hunting freely, taking souls down, I struggled to articulate the feeling, the intuition that had been growing stronger each cycle. There has to be an opposite force, balance, but I never see angels stopping them, never see intervention. Julian studied me with new intensity. You're more perceptive than I gave you credit for. He stood, pacing in that fluid way of his. They're here, watching, always watching, but they don't intervene. Don't stop the demons, don't save the souls, they just observe. Why? Because this isn't hell. It's not heaven. It's the space between, the evaluation ground. The demons are allowed to hunt because damnation is always an option. The angels don't interfere because salvation has to be earned, not given. His voice dropped lower. They're looking for something specific, some quality, some act, some proof of worthiness, and most never provide it. What are they looking for? If I knew that, I wouldn't still be here. The weight of that statement settled between us. Another silence stretched, this one heavier. Why tell me this? I asked. Because you asked? Because you think? He glanced at me. Because maybe together we survive longer than apart. It wasn't friendship. Not yet. But it was something. An alliance. a mutual recognition of shared circumstance. Okay, I said. Okay. We watch out for each other. We survive. We figure this out. Something that might have been a smile touched Julian's lips. You're still an idiot, but fine. That's how it started. Two damned souls, one diminished warlock and one predator fighting his nature, trying to navigate a purgatory designed to break us. We didn't know it then, but we'd already been marked, observed, evaluated. The angels were watching. And what came next would test everything we were, everything we could be, and everything we were willing to sacrifice. The hunt was about to begin. Survival became routine. As routine as anything could be in a place where reality shifted like sand. Julian taught me the patterns, how to recognize the sound of Nephilim wings cutting through the gray, a high-pitched whistle that made your teeth ache, how to identify safe zones, areas where the ground stabilized and the air thinned enough to provide something like rest, how to read the behavior of other souls, the ones who'd been here longer, whose eyes had gone empty from endless cycles of fear. There, he'd say, pointing at nothing I could see. Feel that pressure change, that's a hunting ground forming. We move now or we're in the middle of it when it solidifies. And we'd move, always moving, following instincts I was developing but didn't fully understand. Julian moved with certainty while I stumbled along behind. But gradually I started to anticipate, started to feel the shifts before they happened. We didn't talk much at first. Conversation felt dangerous, like it would attract attention or reveal too much. But silence became its own kind of communication. The way Julian would position himself between me and threats. The way I'd watch his back when he was focused elsewhere. Small gestures that built something more substantial than words. It was during our 7th cycle together, or maybe our 8th, time remained meaningless, that I saw Julian struggle for the first time. We'd found shelter in the hollow of one of those impossible structures, a space that curved inward like the inside of a shell. The walls pulsed with that same disturbing rhythm, but it was defensible with only one entrance to monitor. Julian stood at the opening, utterly still in that way only the dead could manage. But I noticed his hands. They were trembling, barely perceptible, but there. When was the last time you fed? I asked quietly. He didn't turn around. Doesn't matter. It does if it affects your ability to move, to react. I don't feed on humans. His voice was tight, controlled. Haven't in over a century. Not starting now. There are no humans here, just souls. Same thing. He finally turned and I saw it in his eyes. Hunger, barely contained. I made a choice in life. Held to it even when it cost me everything. I'm not abandoning it now because the geography changed. I understood. It wasn't about sustenance. It was about principle. About holding on to the one thing that made him different from the other predators here. If he gave that up, what was left? Okay, I said. Then we figure something else out. There is nothing else. This is what I am. What I've always been. Frustration cracked through his usual composure. A monster pretending morality matters. Guess I was right, it doesn't. I'm here anyway. You're here because the system doesn't know what to do with you. Something that should be damned but acts like it deserves salvation. I moved closer carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. That's not the same as being evil. Tell that to the people I killed before I learned control. How many? The question seemed to catch him off guard. What? How many people did you kill, total? In all the time you were undead. He was quiet for a long moment. 17. Across 134 years. 17 humans dead because I lost control. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I remember all their names. 17. In over a century. For a vampire, that was remarkable restraint. Most killed 17 in their first year, their first month even. But Julian carried those 17 like stones around his neck. The fact that you remember them, I said carefully. The fact that you count them, that matters. Does it? They're still dead. I still killed them. Yes. And you spent the rest of your existence making sure it didn't happen again. That has to count for something. He turned away, but not before I saw something shift in his expression. Not hope, but maybe a crack in the certainty of his damnation. A sound interrupted us. Distant howling, the kind that meant werewolves were active. Julian tensed immediately, predator instincts overriding everything else. "We need to move," he said, all business again. "That's a pack, not a single hunter. They're coordinating." We left our shelter and plunged back into the gray. The howling grew closer, echoing from multiple directions. My heart hammered in my chest. I still had a heart here, still had physical responses, even if they didn't mean quite what they used to. There. Julian grabbed my arm, pulling me toward a crevice in the ground. Not a hollow place, but a gap, a crack in the reality of Purgatory. "Inside, now." I squeezed through, Julian following immediately after. The space was narrow, barely wide enough for both of us. Our bodies pressed together in the confined area, and I felt his coldness, the complete absence of body heat that marked him as something other than living. The howling passed overhead. I caught glimpses through the crack. Massive forms, definitely wolf-shaped but wrong, their fur rippling like it was made of shadows instead of hair. 7 of them. 8. More. A full pack hunting in formation. We stayed frozen, barely breathing, though Julian didn't need to breathe at all. His stillness was absolute while I fought to keep my own body quiet, my own fear controlled. One of the wolves stopped directly above us. I could see its muzzle through the crack, scarred and massive, nostrils flaring as it scented the air. Its eyes glowed yellow, intelligent and malicious. Julian's hand found mine in the darkness. Squeezed once. A warning or reassurance, I couldn't tell which. The wolf's growl vibrated through the ground, through my bones. It knew something was here, sensed prey nearby. Its claws scraped against the surface as it circled our hiding spot. Then another howl, distant, drawing its attention. The pack was moving on, following different prey. The wolf above us hesitated, torn between investigation and following its pack. Finally, it turned and loped away, and vanishing into the gray with the others. We waited, long after the sounds faded, long after the danger passed. When we finally emerged, my legs were shaking. Julian looked unchanged, but I noticed his hand remained clenched, those tremors more pronounced now. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For knowing where to hide, for pulling me in there." He shrugged, but something in his posture softened. "Partners watch out for each other. That's what you said." It was the first time he'd acknowledged the partnership as something real, something mutual, something that mattered. We continued our endless wandering. Cycles blurred together. We developed a language of gestures and glances, communicating volumes without words. I learned to read Julian's moods, the subtle shifts that indicated danger or opportunity or simple exhaustion. He learned my weaknesses, the moments when the weight of this place became too much and I needed to stop. To rest, to remember what it felt like to be human. During one of these rest periods, huddled in relative safety, Julian asked the question I'd been avoiding. "What mistakes did you make?" Specifically. I'd known this was coming, had been dreading it, but if we were going to survive together, trust mattered, and trust required honesty. "There was a woman," I began. "Elena. She came to me desperate. Her daughter was dying, cancer eating through her body. The doctors gave her weeks. Elena had heard rumors about people like me, practitioners, witches. She begged me to help." Julian said nothing, just listened with those unblinking red eyes. I told her I couldn't. That healing magic, real healing, requires balance. A life for a life. Energy transferred, not created. She didn't care. Said she'd give her own life for her daughters. But I knew how those rituals worked. The suffering involved. The corruption that seeps in when you force energy transfer like that. But you did it anyway. Not the way she wanted. I thought I was smarter. Thought I could cheat the balance. The memories came flooding back, vivid and horrible. I performed a ritual that would draw life force from multiple sources, plants, animals, ambient energy, spread the cost across many small deaths instead of one large one. It should have worked. The theory was sound. But I miscalculated, underestimated how much energy it would take. The ritual drew more than I intended. Plants within a half-mile radius withered and died. Animals, pets, wildlife, everything just collapsed. The neighborhood looked like a plague zone when I was done. And Elena's daughter? I had to stop, the weight of it pressing down. She survived. The cancer went into remission. But the trauma of watching everything around her die, of knowing somehow she was connected to it, she never recovered psychologically. Last I heard before I died, she was institutionalized, alive but broken. Julian was quiet for a long time. You tried to minimize harm. I caused it anyway. Hundreds of deaths. A child psychologically destroyed. All because I thought I knew better than the fundamental rules of magic. Was it the only time? I wished I could say yes. There were others. Smaller. But similar pattern. Good intentions, flawed execution, unintended consequences. I spent my life trying to help people and leaving destruction in my wake. Hence Purgatory. Hence Purgatory. I looked at him. We're quite the pair, aren't we? A vampire who killed 17 people trying not to kill anyone. A warlock who killed hundreds trying to save one. Something that might have been humor flickered in his expression. At least we're consistent in our incompetence. It shouldn't have been funny. But something about it, about acknowledging our shared failure, made me laugh. A short, bitter sound that echoed strangely in the gray. Julian's lips twitched, and then he was laughing too, quiet and dark. The laughter died quickly, swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere. But something remained. Understanding. Acceptance. We weren't here because we were evil. We were here because we tried to be good and failed spectacularly. Do you think they're watching now? I asked. The angels? Julian tilted his head, listening to something I couldn't hear. Always. They're always watching. Waiting for something. What? I don't know, but I feel them sometimes. Presence without form, judgment without verdict. They're patient. More patient than anything else here. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with temperature, being watched constantly, evaluated, measured against criteria you couldn't understand. It was its own kind of torture. We should move, Julian said suddenly, tension returning to his frame. Something's shifting. Feel it? I did. The air, if you could call it that, had thickened. The gray was darkening, cycling toward whatever passed for night in this place. And with the dark came increased danger. We moved through the landscape, Julian leading with that predatory awareness. I followed, more confident now in my ability to navigate this space but still reliant on his enhanced senses. That's when we encountered them. They emerged from the gray like they'd been waiting specifically for us. 3 demons, larger and more solid than the one I'd seen cycles ago. These weren't scouts or opportunistic hunters. These were intentional, coordinated. Run, Julian said, his voice perfectly calm despite the circumstances. What about run? I ran. The weight dragged at me, making every step feel like moving through concrete, but fear provided motivation. Behind me, I heard Julian engaging, buying time. The sounds were visceral, impacts, growls, his voice raised in challenge. I pushed forward, navigating by instinct, taking turns through the impossible architecture without thought. The demons' voices echoed behind me, those layered tones speaking in languages that hurt to hear. Then Julian was beside me, moving with that impossible speed. Blood, black, not red, stained his shirt. Not his blood. Couldn't be his blood. Keep moving, he gasped. They're not stopping. Why are they hunting us specifically? Because we're interesting. Because we work together. Because we've lasted longer than we should. He pulled me into a narrow passage between 2 structures. We made ourselves targets by surviving. The demons were close now. I could feel their heat, smell that sulfur and rot stench. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. Julian turned to face them, placing himself between me and the approaching threat. His stance was defensive, protective. He knew he couldn't win, we both knew it. But he stood there anyway. The demons emerged from the gray, spreading out to surround us. The largest stepped forward, its burning eyes fixed on Julian with something like recognition. The vampire who refuses his nature. How noble. Its voice dripped mockery. And his pet Warlock, the failed savior. You've been quite entertaining to track. Leave him alone, Julian said quietly. Your quarrel is with me. Our quarrel is with both of you. But don't worry, we'll take you together. A matched set for the depths. The other demons moved closer, cutting off any escape route. The heat from their bodies made the air shimmer. I felt my knees weaken, the weight of this place combined with fear finally overwhelming me. Julian reached back without looking, his hand finding mine. Squeezed once. That same gesture from the crevice when the wolves had been hunting overhead. Trust, partnership. Whatever was coming, we'd face it together. The demons advanced. Julian tensed, preparing for a fight he couldn't win. And somewhere, in the gray, I felt it, that presence Julian had mentioned. The angels watching, evaluating, making no move to interfere. This was our test, our moment of judgment. And we were about to fail it. The lead demon's hand shot forward, reaching for Julian with those burning fingers. Everything slowed. I saw it happening, saw the inevitability of it, saw Julian preparing to fight, to resist, to go down protecting me even though it meant his own damnation. And I understood. Finally, completely. What the angels were looking for, what this place demanded, what salvation actually required. The choice came to me with perfect clarity. Terrible, necessary, absolute. I had to decide, and there was really only one decision possible. Not yet, though. Not this moment. But soon. Very soon. The demon's hand connected with Julian's chest and he staggered back, the heat leaving scorch marks on his shirt. He didn't fall, didn't yield, just braced himself for what came next. And I knew with certainty that felt like prophecy, that I wouldn't let him face it alone. Whatever was coming, whatever price this place demanded, I would pay it. Because that's what friendship meant. Real friendship. The kind built in hell's waiting room between two damned souls trying to remember what goodness felt like. The demons circled closer. The gray darkened further, and the angels watched, silent and patient, waiting for someone to prove themselves worthy of salvation. The moment was coming. The choice. The sacrifice. I was ready. The demons didn't rush. They didn't need to. They moved with the confidence of predators who'd already won, circling us like sharks around wounded prey. The lead demon, the one who'd spoken, kept its burning eyes fixed on Julian, while the other two positioned themselves to cut off any escape. Julian stood firm, his body coiled tight, ready to strike even though we both knew it was futile. His hand still held mine, fingers cold and steady despite the tremors that had plagued him earlier. In this moment, facing certain damnation, he was absolutely calm. I wasn't. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat feeling like it might be among my last. Sweat. Could souls even sweat here? Slicked my palms. The weight of purgatory pressed down harder than ever, crushing the air from my lungs. Final offer, the lead demon said, its multi-layered voice somehow amused. Come willingly. Make it easy. We might even go gentle. We both know that's a lie, Julian replied. His voice remained level, conversational almost. You're going to drag us down screaming either way. At least let us keep our dignity. The demon's laugh was like grinding metal. Dignity. From a bloodsucker and a failed miracle worker. That's rich. The other two demons moved closer, flanking us. The heat radiating from their bodies made the gray shimmer and warp. I could smell my own fear now, acrid and sharp, cutting through even the sulfur stench. Julian's grip on my hand tightened fractionally, a warning, or goodbye. Maybe both. When I move, he whispered, so quiet only I could hear, you run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Just run. No, this isn't negotiable. You're right, it's not. I pulled my hand free from his and stepped forward, placing myself between Julian and the demons. The movement was awkward, sluggish from the weight but deliberate. Final. What are you doing? Julian's voice cracked for the first time since I'd known him. Something I should have done in life. I kept my eyes on the lead demon, forcing myself to meet those burning sockets. Take me instead. Silence. Complete and absolute. Even the ambient sounds of Purgatory seemed to still. The demon tilted its head, studying me with sudden interest. Explain. You want souls. You need to fill your quota or whatever drives you to hunt here. Fine, take me, let him go. Why would I do that? Why? I can have both. Because I'm offering freely, willing submission. That's worth more than forced capture, isn't it? I was guessing, operating on half-remembered folklore and desperate hope. A soul that chooses damnation willingly carries different weight than one dragged down fighting. The demon's expression, as much as that inhuman face could express anything, shifted to something like curiosity. You understand the implications? There's no escape once you're claimed, no appeals, no redemption. You'd be choosing eternal torment. I understand. No! Julian grabbed my shoulder, spinning me around. His eyes blazed with emotions I'd never seen in them. Rage, fear, desperation. You don't get to do this. You don't get to sacrifice yourself for me. Why not? You were about to do it for me. That's different. How? How is it different? I kept my voice calm, even though I wanted to scream. Because you think you're already damned? Because you've convinced yourself you don't deserve salvation? I put my hand on his chest, feeling the stillness where a heartbeat should be. You spent over a century fighting your nature, protecting humans, holding on to morality even when it cost you everything. If anyone here deserves a chance, it's you. And what about you? Your mistakes were exactly that. Mistakes, not malice, not cruelty, just failure. I smiled, sad and tired and strangely peaceful. Maybe that's all I am, someone who failed. But this I can do right. Please. The word came out broken. Please don't. I'd never heard him say please before. Never heard his voice crack like that. All composure stripped away to reveal the person underneath. Scared, lonely, desperately not wanting to be abandoned again. I'm sorry, I whispered. I turned back to the demons before Julian could stop me, before I could change my mind, before the fear could overwhelm the certainty. I'll go with you, willingly, peacefully, no resistance. But he stays. That's the deal. The lead demon considered this, glancing at its companions. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Then it smiled, a terrible expression on that inhuman face. Deal. It stepped forward, extending one of those burning hands toward me. I forced myself not to flinch, not to step back. This was my choice. My decision. For once, I would do something right. Julian's hand closed around my wrist. Wait. I looked back at him. His face, usually so controlled, so carefully neutral, was raw with emotion. Red eyes shining with something that might have been tears if vampires could cry. Thank you, he said quietly, for seeing me, for believing I could be more than what I am. You already are more. You just needed to see it yourself. He released my wrist slowly, reluctantly, like letting go was physically painful. We held eye contact for one more moment, an entire conversation compressed into a single look. Understanding. Forgiveness. Goodbye. Then I turned away and stepped toward the demon. Its hand closed around my arm and pain exploded through me. Not physical pain, or not entirely physical. It was deeper, more fundamental. Like every mistake I'd ever made, every life I'd ruined, every good intention that had turned to ash, all of it crystallizing into sensation and burning through my being. I gasped but didn't scream. Wouldn't scream. That dignity Julian had mentioned, I'd keep that much at least. The demon began pulling me forward, away from Julian, toward whatever darkness waited beyond the gray. The other two demons moved to flank us, ensuring I couldn't escape even if I wanted to. I caught one last glimpse of Julian, standing alone, shoulders hunched, looking more human and vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. Then the gray swallowed the view and he was gone. The descent began. That's the only word for it. We weren't walking or moving through space in any conventional sense. We were falling, sinking, descending through layers of reality that shouldn't exist. Each layer was worse than the last, hotter, darker, more oppressive. The weight I'd felt in Purgatory multiplied exponentially with each level we passed. I could hear things below us, screaming, weeping, laughter that had gone past sanity into something else entirely. The sound of countless souls experiencing eternal torment, my future, my eternity. I closed my eyes, tried to remember better things. Elena's daughter, alive despite everything. The people I had helped before I'd started helping them wrong. Julian's rare, almost smiles when he thought I wasn't looking. Small moments of light to hold against the darkness rushing up to meet me. The demons pulled me deeper. The heat became unbearable. My skin, did I even have skin here? Felt like it was blistering, peeling away layer by layer. This was just the approach. The actual hell would be infinitely worse. I wondered if Julian was safe, if the demons had honored the deal or if they'd turned on him the moment I was dragged away. I hoped he survived, hoped he eventually found whatever the angels were looking for, proved himself worthy of something better than this. The thought brought strange comfort. Even if I burned forever, at least one of us might make it out. That was enough. It had to be enough. The descent continued, deeper, darker, hotter. Then it stopped. Not gradually, immediately. One moment we were falling, the next we hung suspended in void. The demons' grips on me loosened, their burning hands releasing my arms. Confusion flickered across their inhuman features. "What?" the lead demon began. Light cut through the darkness, not bright, not overwhelming, but pure in a way that made the gray of Purgatory look stained by comparison. It didn't hurt to look at, but I wanted to look away anyway, suddenly aware of every flaw, every mistake, every compromise I'd ever made. A figure emerged from the light, human-shaped but clearly not human. Its features were difficult to focus on, shifting subtly whenever I tried to see them clearly. Beautiful and terrible simultaneously. Genderless, timeless, absolute. An angel. The demons recoiled, hissing, but they didn't flee. Couldn't flee. The angel's presence had frozen them in place as surely as it had stopped our descent. "This soul is claimed," the lead demon protested, its voice losing that confident layering. "He chose, willingly. The deal is witnessed." The angel's voice was nothing like the demon's, single-toned but somehow containing infinite depth. It spoke without speaking, the words appearing directly in my mind. The deal is honored. He chose damnation to save another, freely given, without hope of reward. Then he's ours. No. The single word carried absolute authority. The demons tried to respond but found themselves unable to speak. The angel moved closer to me and I felt that same evaluation I'd sensed throughout my time in Purgatory, amplified 1,000-fold. Every moment of my existence laid bare and examined. Every thought, every action, every intention. I wanted to explain, to justify, to defend myself against the judgment I felt pressing down. But I remained silent. What could I say that this being didn't already know? The angel reached out, its hand passing through the space where the demon's grip had been. When it touched my arm, the pain vanished instantly, not faded, erased, like it had never existed. "Your mistakes in life were grave," the angel said, speaking directly to me now. "You caused suffering through arrogance and flawed judgment. You earned your place in Purgatory. I nodded. No point denying it. But here, in this place of testing, you have proven something fundamental. The angel's form shifted, somehow conveying gravity despite the inability to see its expression clearly. You chose another salvation over your own, asked for nothing, expected nothing, gave everything. He deserved it more than me, I managed to say. My voice sounded small, childlike in the presence of this being. That is precisely why your choice holds meaning. You recognized worth in another, even while convinced of your own unworthiness. You sacrificed not believing it would save you, not hoping for reward, but because it was right. The light around the angel brightened, pushing back the darkness of our descent. The demons tried to retreat but remained frozen, unable to move. The greatest act a soul can perform, the angel continued, is voluntary sacrifice made without hope, love given freely, grace offered expecting nothing in return. These are the qualities that transcend judgment. These are what we watch for. I felt something shift inside me, not physically, deeper, like chains I hadn't known I was wearing suddenly unlocking and falling away. You have passed evaluation. The words hung in the void. I struggled to process them. What? Your time in Purgatory is complete. Your judgment is rendered. The angel's hand remained on my arm, cool and solid. You are found worthy. But my mistakes, Elena's daughter, all those deaths, are not forgotten, are not erased, but are understood in context. You failed trying to do good. You learned. You grew. And when tested, you chose grace over self-preservation. The light intensified. That is the nature of redemption. Not perfection, but growth. Not sinlessness, but sacrifice. Tears streamed down my face. Real tears, not the metaphorical kind. What about Julian? The vampire remains in Purgatory. His evaluation continues. But he's good. He tried. He fought his nature every day. His journey is his own. His choices are his own. His judgment will come when it comes. The angel began pulling me upward, away from the darkness below. You cannot save him through your sacrifice. That is not how this works. Then let me go back. Let me stay with him. Help him. No. Gentle but absolute. You have earned ascension. To refuse it would be to reject grace itself. That path leads only to damnation. The demons below began to fade as we rose, their protests dying into silence. The void gave way to gray, then to something lighter. The weight that had pressed on me since arriving in Purgatory lifted gradually, each level of ascent bringing relief. But my heart, or whatever served as my heart here, remained heavy. He's alone now, I said quietly. He'll think I'm in hell, think the sacrifice meant nothing. He will think what he will think. His path is his own. We continued rising. The gray of Purgatory appeared below us now, that impossible landscape spread out like a map. I could see souls moving through it, demons hunting, the whole terrible system operating as it always had. Somewhere down there, Julian remained. Alone. Vulnerable. Still fighting. Will he make it? I had to ask. Will he pass evaluation? The angel was quiet for a long moment. He has already passed the most difficult test. He continues to choose morality even in the absence of reward. His compassion for you was genuine, his protection freely given. These qualities matter. Then why not take him too? Because redemption is not collective. Each soul must prove itself individually. He must make his own choice, his own sacrifice. When that moment comes, the angel trailed off. Faith is required, even from us. We broke through into something new. Not heaven, not yet, but a space between Purgatory and paradise. The light here was warm, welcoming, nothing like the gray or the darkness below. I could feel peace radiating from it, seeping into the cracks of my being that had been worn raw by mistakes and guilt. The angel released my arm and stepped back. Your ascension is not complete. The final transition requires acceptance. Do you accept grace? Do you accept that you are worthy despite your flaws? It should have been easy to answer, but I found myself hesitating. Part of me, the part that had carried guilt for so long, wanted to refuse, wanted to say I didn't deserve this, that my mistakes were too great, that I should suffer more. But that would be rejecting the sacrifice I'd made, rejecting the value of choosing grace over self-preservation. If I refused now, it would mean Julian's survival was meaningless. It would mean the choice itself was wrong. I accept, I whispered. The light enveloped me completely. Epilogue, Julian's perspective. I stood in the gray alone again after cycles, maybe longer, of having someone watching my back. The demons had left after taking him. Honored the deal, surprisingly. They'd gotten what they wanted, a willing soul, dragged down to suffering. They had no need for me after that. I should have felt relief. Survival, after all, was the priority. But all I felt was empty. He'd sacrificed himself. For me. A monster who'd killed 17 people. A predator pretending at humanity. He'd seen something in me worth saving, and I didn't understand why. I moved through the landscape mechanically, avoiding threats out of habit rather than desire. What was the point? I'd survive longer, sure. But for what? To wander this gray hell alone, forever evaluated and forever found wanting. The cycles passed. I didn't count them. Time meant nothing when nothing changed. Then one cycle, while hiding from a Nephilim patrol, I felt it. That presence I'd described to him. The watching presence that never interfered. An angel. Standing in the gray like it had always been there. Looking directly at me. I froze. Predator instincts screamed at me to run, to hide, to fight. I did none of those things. Just stared back at this being of pure judgment. The Warlock, I said finally. Is he? He ascended. The angel's voice filled my mind. His sacrifice was deemed worthy. He has passed beyond this place. Something inside me, something I thought had died long before my human death, cracked open. Relief, joy, grief, all of it at once overwhelming. Good, I managed. That's good. You grieve his absence. Yes. You believed his sacrifice was wasted on one such as you. I didn't answer, didn't need to. The angel could read me completely. Your belief is incorrect. The angel moved closer. I didn't retreat. Your capacity for compassion, your continued choice of morality over nature, your genuine care for another soul, these qualities matter. These are what we observe. But I'm still here, still being tested. Yes, because your evaluation is incomplete, but incomplete does not mean failed. The angel's form shifted somehow. Your friend saw worth in you. Perhaps it is time you saw it in yourself. Then it was gone, dissolved into the gray as suddenly as it had appeared. I stood there, processing. He'd made it. The sacrifice had worked. He'd chosen grace, and grace had chosen him back. And I was still here, still being evaluated, still being given chances to prove whatever this place needed me to prove. I didn't know if I'd make it. Didn't know if I'd ever pass evaluation, ever ascend beyond this gray existence. But for the first time since arriving in Purgatory, I had something I'd lost centuries ago. Hope. I started walking again, not fleeing, not hiding, moving with purpose. The gray remained gray. The dangers remained dangerous. But something had shifted inside me, some fundamental understanding. Redemption wasn't about being perfect. It was about choosing grace, even when it cost everything, even when you got nothing in return. He'd shown me that, through his sacrifice, through his friendship, through seeing something in me worth saving. And maybe, eventually, I'd prove him right. The gray stretched out endlessly before me. I walked into it, no longer alone, even in solitude. Somewhere, beyond this place, he was safe, ascended. at peace. That was enough. It had to be enough. And maybe someday I'd see him again. On the other side, where the gray gave way to light. I kept walking, kept choosing, kept hoping. The evaluation continued, but for the first time, I believed I might pass it.